And we are live. What's up, everybody? It's your favorite starving musician, Jackie Jordan, and you are tuned in to another episode of a short podcast with Jackie Jordan. I am your host, Jackie Jordan, and today we have a very special guest. But before we get into it, do me a favor, hit the like on this video. Please subscribe to our channel. Click the little bell next to it so you get a notification every time we drop a video. And after you get done listening to this intriguing piece of content, I want you to leave a comment below and let me know what you think. All right, let's get into it. Now today, I have a gentleman who I've been making music with for a very long time. He is one of the first artists that I signed to my independent record label, Raw Entertainment. I would say maybe the second in command in the UGMAF rap group. This is a gentleman who is a great poet, a great lyricist, and a great musician wrapped all into one. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Marcus Levee.
Marcus Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, fam.
For sure. Now, man, I know you probably watched the episode I had with my man Kai the Feature. Please let us know what you thought about that interview, because I think today we have a lot of great things that we can discuss, some of which we discussed in that Kai the Feature interview. So just start by telling me, did you get a chance to check it out for us?
Yeah, I caught some of it. I caught the part, especially where you were talking about the 2016 XXXL.
Yeah.
I found that intriguing because I too have always felt like they were very underrated. And it was also nice to get like that refresher, because sometimes I get so caught up in like my own music, what I'm doing, that I can be almost like a hermit, not really looking at what's going on out here. So it was good to get like a few history lessons and some 2010s nostalgia, so to speak.
For sure. Were you able to catch the part where we were scrolling down memory lane talking about the UGMAF days?
Unfortunately, I didn't complete the whole thing because of work.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Because I just wanted to get your opinion on everything that had happened back in the day. But I guess we can get into that later in this episode. First, man, tell me about you. How are you doing these days? What does Marcus have going on?
Outside of music, I'm just a working man, trying to get my own business, my own cleaning business going off the ground. So that way I can have the best of both worlds. I can be the celebrity I want to be in my own head, but I can also, because I feel like maintenance work, or janitorial duties as we used to call it growing up, it's actually an underrated way of serving the people, serving the public.
Okay.
I'm also working on a book because I want to encourage Black men to express themselves more and get in touch with more of our emotions. We don't have to express just one emotion. We don't have to rely on anger as fuel. We can move on love too. We can be happy, we can be sad, we can do anything anyone else can do, and we don't have to feel like our masculinity is compromised for it.
Yeah, man, that's an interesting point there. Actually, I'm starting my company. It's called Emo World Productions. It's a production company, and our mission statement is exactly what you just said, allowing men the platform to be able to express their emotions, normal human emotions. I don't know why, but I guess the world expects us to kind of be like robots, and we're not allowed to feel anything or anything like that. So I do think it's very important for men to be able to express ourselves, because we human too, man. We human too.
Yeah, we are definitely human too. And when you think about it, some of the shows that we got to grow up on, like Dragon Ball Z, for example, rest in peace to Akira Toriyama.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. A lot of those male characters were still badasses, and they still still shed tears. They still had wives and children that they loved. Like, especially in this genre, a genre that's so specific on one type of masculinity. it's about the love because you got to love what you're doing. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. That's why I
Right,
think Outkast is one of the best rap groups of all time because they showed you you can be the toughest dude on the block and still be your natural, maybe even a little bit weird self.
right. And how old are you
I
right
just
now?
turned I just turned 30 on December the 21st.
All right, all right. So if you could go back in time and tell
Mm-hmm.
your 15-year-old self how to
Mm-hmm.
better deal with your emotions, what would you
Yeah.
say to him?
Well, there was actually four things I would say. The first thing would be don't worry about what other people say. If you have to cry, if you have to be sad, just do it so that it won't fester you because emotions unchecked can be a lot like a disease or cancer. It can just eat away at you until you don't even recognize who you are anymore. The second thing that I would tell myself, it's gonna get better eventually. You don't have to think that this is the end all be all. The third thing that I would tell myself, younger self, you're not the only one going through it, so seek support. And the fourth and most important thing, feed your spirit because the flesh will have you thinking that some things that are that serious aren't that serious are, and there's more to you than your emotions. You're more than just one bad feeling.
Right, right. And see me, I'm not really sure what I would tell my 15-year-old self,
Mm-hmm.
but I do know at the time my emotions kind of just was all over the place. I didn't know how to channel it in a healthy way. Actually, the healthiest way in which I could channel it was through music. And
Yes.
but when I wasn't recording music in my personal life, I was spiraling out of control. I had a quick temper. It's got me in a very tough situation.
Mm-hmm.
Almost lost my life behind my anger, outburst. So I do think it's very
Yeah.
important that we teach the young men of our society how to better deal with their emotions. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the fathers aren't in the
Yes.
home as they should be.
Right.
And I believe that's a father's job to teach his young son how to manage his emotions. Unfortunately, the
Right.
mothers are left to have to
Yeah.
teach the men how to deal with their emotions. But women are emotional creatures, and it's
Yeah.
hard to teach a man not to
Mm-hmm.
react with his emotions when
Yeah.
we are watching our mothers, be
Yeah.
emotional and everything like that.
And
But go ahead.
another important thing that never really gets touched on as well, sometimes with it just being the mother's task with this, sometimes they try to, but they have a misguided idea of how a man's supposed to be. And sometimes they can further the narrative that you're not supposed to express yourself. You're just supposed to shut up and stop whining. But and that's why you need good fathers because like a good man is going to teach you. You're not whining, you're not crying, you're saying how you feel. Because if you don't say it, it's going to a man can't hide what's going on with him. It's going to come out in the way he acts, or it's going to come out in some way.
Right, right. I definitely agree with you there. But man, what do you think is the problem, the main issue that's going on in our communities? Do you think it's because there's a lack of fathers in the household or a lack of guidance, or what do you think it is?
I think the ultimate problem is that we're, as a whole, we're maturing too slowly. It's important to remember that the civil rights era wasn't that long ago. A lot of our parents were born shortly after. You know, as a matter of fact, the late rapper Tupac's death and Malcolm X's deaths weren't that far away from each other, like maybe over 20 years. We've only had
28?
equal we've only had equal rights for a very short time. So I think you see where our politics, our way of treating each other, everything is almost like it's in a puberty. And what I think needs to happen is we need to start talking to each other, not at each other, because you have dads that are there, but they don't get it. You know what I mean? Um, hitting your son and telling them that he's a you know what, because I don't want to test what I can say on your show. You know what I mean?
Say
Um,
whatever you want, brother.
you can't hitting your son and telling him he's a pussy is not teaching him to be a man. It's actually teaching him to be a punk because a punk hides how he feels and tries to
Mm,
mask it by being tough guy and all this other stuff. That's why I always say a lot of this, like this red pill thing, where the men are like, if you love a woman, you're a simp. They're missing, they're only half right on one thing. You're supposed to have a purpose, not worry so much about women. But the thing that they're missing is you can't substitute chasing women with chasing money. You have to be pursuing yourself, your higher self.
mm.
Because when you reach that higher place of self love, the woman or the women, the right ones, they'll come. We be worried about the wrong thing sometimes. We'll sit up here and gatekeep a black man's sexuality if he's not tough or into sports. And I'm like, worried about the wrong things. I don't care if Ray Sean is gay. I just don't want Ray Sean to get up in the streets and die at 21 when he should go out the way any man should go out as a grandfather with his family surrounding him.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I think we all have an idea of what's going on. The $1 million question is, okay, what are we going to do about it? Because we all have to agree. Right now, we're all at that place where everybody wants to be a chief. Nobody wants to be an Indian. No one wants to follow a leader. Nobody even really wants to be a leader. They want to be the boss. The mindset is, I'm a boss. I'm a boss nigga. I'm a boss bitch. And it's like, we don't need bosses. We need leaders that are willing to get in the mud with us and get their hands dirty.
Facts. And
Yes, sir.
unfortunately, there aren't too many leaders that we can look to. It seems today that we're kind of in this cycle to where everyone wants to follow the trend, everyone wants to follow each other, rather than the
Mm-hmm.
people who are stepping forward and saying, okay, I'm going to blaze my own path. You may
Right.
not know this, but part of the reason why I stopped rapping and making the kind of music that I was making. And you probably remember a few years ago, I came to you with an idea. I said, how about we do a project where there's no curse words? It's just
Oh,
bars, no curse words. And you said that you weren't able to do that. And that was shocking to me because you're one of the
really?
most lyrical people that I know.
You
So
know,
I
it's
thought
funny
if
that you say that.
anyone would be able to do that, it would be you. Um,
Oh, that's interesting
but
because go ahead. Sorry.
well, no,
I
I
was.
was just going to say that
Mm-hmm.
that's part of the reason why I stopped rapping because I realized that I was kind of um promoting the stereotype. I didn't really like I felt like I was encouraging all of the negative and toxic things that are going on in our community, and I really just wanted to blaze down another path and show the kids that there's another way to be successful. You don't have to follow the crowd and do what everyone else is doing in order to be accepted.
I truly understand what you mean. Thank you for refreshing me on that conversation because I swear it feels like a blur. Knowing
Mm,
me, it probably did happen because I juggle. I have like what you call scatterbrain thoughts. But the interesting thing about that is I have songs on some of these projects where I've challenged myself. Let's bring it down to maybe what two cuss words. Um, no cuss words, Instead of gun bars, I can switch it up to instead of I put the K in your face, I smack you on your face, or better yet, kill him with the K, kindness, or something. I'm not saying everything's gonna be like daffodils and everything, but I'm like trying to
mhm.
show myself, I'm more intelligent than this. And I also felt at one point that you don't have to be mainstream to allow yourself to be a tool to push certain agendas. And once I realized
Right.
that, I was like, you know what? I can't sit around here and watch YouTube videos about Jay-Z being in the Illuminati. If I'm rapping about the same thing, then I would need to look in the mirror real quick. Not to say that I was ever really going that far, but I know at one point when you first met me, a lot of my lyrics were just boastful about how well I could rap. And that's no different than someone who raps about trap, trap, trap all day. You have to show people that you're a well-rounded human being. Like I have a song coming on one of my projects. It's actually one of the toughest records that I will have ever made, and that's not arrogance. That's just the truth from someone who knows how he writes. And there's only two f bombs and one nigga. That's it.
very impressive. I don't know if you noticed, but on my last project, I probably cursed maybe less than 5 times because I made it an effort. I was like, man, I don't want to just be spewing all of this. If I don't have to, I'm not going to, you know?
Yeah. But you know
But
what really, go ahead.
there's a delay, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, you know, believe it or not, it really wasn't even rap that made me go this route. It was actually something that the comedian Cat Williams said.
Mm.
And that was like the basically how you have to be able to switch it up for your audience. Once I realized I'm not always going to be around my homies all the time, I decided to stop rapping like I'm around my homies all the time. I wanted to start rapping like like if I'm in the room with my lady, I'm not going to be talking about, oh, nigga this, nigga that. I hit that nigga with my bat. I'm smoking weed, got my gat. No, I'm gonna be saying some smooth stuff like, you know, et cetera, et cetera. If I'm around my mother, it's gonna be more positive. So I started making myself well rounded. You know, Tupac Shakur, one of the most hardcore respected artists, made songs like Dear Mama, Just Like Daddy, Change. Like, we can all do it. We're all human beings. And I think this came from the movie Shrek. We're like onions, we have layers. That's why I
Mm.
started singing. You actually inspired the singing thing because when you remember when you met me, like I was, despite being the oldest, I was a very timid individual. I would not step out of my shell much. I was just like rap, rap, rap. I had that what I call it the New York syndrome. Like everybody wants to rap like they're from New York, lyrical, miracle individual in the living room, kicking Negro spirituals.
Shout out the backpackers out there.
Oh, much respect, because if it wasn't for New York, we wouldn't even have the genre we love so much. Um, Once I stepped out of that shell, I realized something. You can do anything that you try. You are whatever you say you are. So I started saying, I'm not just a rapper. I'm a jack of many trades with the agenda to master as many as I can while I'm on this green earth.
Right. And why is it that you don't think that, okay, yeah, you can be anything that you want to be, but
Mm-hmm.
why is it that so many people are striving to be the negative? Why aren't there
Well,
many people striving to be that positive influence?
well, that's actually a very, I'm sorry, I'm having some issues with my camera and my back.
It's fine.
That's actually a very philosophical question. My theory on why that is because that's not put in front of people enough. People are only gonna believe what they're given. Think about it. It's no different than how people rarely cook. They eat out. They'll just take whatever somebody gives them, and it's about pushing independent thought. If you start there, you'll be surprised. Give people an inch, they'll do what? They'll take a mile. It's just that we got to get them from, they've taken miles and miles in the wrong direction. And I don't mean to say they, like I'm somehow independent and I'm not a product of my environment too. Um, but just like it took a while to get folks like this, it's going to take them a while to go in the other direction. And part of being different is you have to have thick skin yourself, because people are going to look at you like you're the crazy one. And it's about knowing, even, and this one is for my Christian homies out there. Even Jesus said they know not what they do. So you can't really get angry at them for not understanding, because when you're different, you're a peculiar person in their eyes. But to us, those who want to be like everyone else are the strange ones. They're the crazy ones. And it's like we got to meet in the middle and try to leave the judgment at home and meet them where they are. Like, I have different types of friends. Some are blue collar, some are out in their life, and I've learned to like talk to everyone in the different languages that they understand. This new era calls it code switching. We just used to call it being a social chameleon, I think.
And so many people just find that ability weird. Like I'm able to,
Mm-hmm.
as you say, code switch or basically adjust myself depending on who I'm around, you know, so that
Right.
everyone can feel comfortable. But I've noticed that some people will think that you're being fake or disingenuous if maybe you're acting
Yes.
a certain way around a certain crowd of people.
Absolutely. You know, being fake, being disingenuous. If you're in a room full of certain people, to consider it you being a sellout or a suck up, and nothing could be further from the truth. I'm just going to use this as an example because, I try not to make race the base often. But like, let's say I'm in a room full of well-to-do blue-collar white folks. I'm not going to talk to them like I would talk to my homies when we're in the whip going to get McDonald's or something. I'm going to speak to them in their language because it's like, you know what? Maybe on your side, you have some information that I don't have on my end. So I'm trying to sit here and I'm trying to learn and leave any preconceived notions at home. And I think that's what people missing out. When you block yourself off like that, oh, I'm a true blue, I'm a real one, I'm gonna stay here. You're actually holding yourself back because Jackie, we ain't meant to stay in one place. What you and I are on, everybody's supposed to be on that. Like, that's why I never consider being rare to be a flex. I actually think that's a very sad thing because it's like what I am, you can be. In fact, you probably had the potential to be something bigger, but you're looking at what your best friend is saying. Like, the I think one of the best things that ever happened to me is that I lived in the suburbs just for so long. I realized, you know what? This is how it should be. A nice day where I can sit outside on my porch, drink lemonade with my grandfather. Rest in peace to Pops, the only Pops I knew. Um, it taught me a color. It's not a behavior thing, and black is not negative. We need to not just because the color black has so many sad connotations to it does not mean that we the people have to be those bad connotations. Like, we're a beautiful race of people, and we got to get to that point where we see it when we look in the mirror. Because TV is never going to validate you, because most of the channels that we watch aren't owned by us.
Man, it's hard to do that in this time with
Oh
social
yes.
media
Oh
because
yes.
everyone, like you said, people can only strive to be what they're able to see. And I know I was fortunate as much as maybe I feel like maybe I was put at a disadvantage of my
Mm-hmm.
family moving around as much as we did. I
Mm-hmm.
also I also think I was very fortunate because I was able to experience so many different cultures, be around so many different groups of people, and I realized that the world is so much bigger than maybe if I had stayed in Orange, Texas, and I spent my entire life there. Would I ever
Man.
have strived to be anything
I
more
mean.
than what most people are that come from that place? And obviously, you have a bunch of blue collar workers, but you also have a bunch of people who are into that street life, the gangs and the crime and everything like that, the drugs. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
those people, they don't strive to be much of anything more than what they can see on a day-to-day basis. So do you think that it's possible for people to
Mm-hmm.
really strive to be anything more when we're constantly seeing this celebrity lifestyle being crammed down our throats? And especially specifically when we talk about the Black community,
Right.
the representation that is being
Do
shown.
do I think it's possible?
Yes, in the
Possibly.
age
I
of
think
social
it's
media.
I think it's possible. The probability is very low, but I think what it is like, if we I'm just going to use a personal example. I know a guy who is, as we used to say in the 2010s, about that life. But
Mm-hmm.
when he started to realize, yo, I can take this same thing and apply it to the business world, the corporate world, like, we started to see a shift in him. And it was like every time I saw him, he was talking about the stocks. Hey man, you need to invest in this. You need to invest in that. I don't know how that brother's doing today, but man, I was like, now that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's not where you're at, but who you know. Because let's be honest, once you cut that TV off, if the person sitting right next to you is just entrenched in it as you are, that's the thing. You remember, because you were born around the 2000s, right?
1999.
1999. So you got to experience some of that era where, like, a lot of what we saw on TV still reflected real life. I think you might remember, it's 9 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? That was back when TV made it clear you're supposed to raise your kids. We're
Yeah.
we're because, like, I I now, don't get me wrong. I don't think it's gonna go back to that era until we get to the point where people just stop accepting what they're given. But I think Black people can do it. They just have to have people that they can hear it from. Ice Cube and what he's trying to do, that's just not enough. You need more people that want to use their influence for the right reason. I think a lot of what's missing is nobody really even goes outside anymore. You don't really see anybody going to the community centers like that anymore. Um, and there ain't even really good shows for younger versions of ourselves, the kids to watch on TV. Everybody's watching Love and Hip Hop now. And I can tell you, after the first 3 seasons, it stopped being entertaining. Like it was just me laughing at what was going on, and then it dawned on me, maybe I shouldn't laugh too hard because I'm basically laughing at me. I'm laughing at us. And if
Yeah.
I'm laughing at us, who else is laughing at us?
The world is laughing at us, and I don't think that we've yet woke up to that idea. To me, it's embarrassing, man, and I don't. I definitely think it's possible that we'll have someone to come up and just show us a different way, but I don't think it's very probable. Only because
Mm-hmm.
it's so much of it, so much of the negative, toxic shit,
Yeah.
and I don't think that people are going to just be able to just wake up, because I do remember a time in the world before social media, where people
Mm-hmm.
used to go outside. But I would say the difference between now and then is back then it used to be more of a community, and the
Right.
community was when we walked outside of our door. Now the community is where we
Mm-hmm.
pick up our phone,
Right.
and that's where you have a bunch of people who, it's almost like high school now.
Right.
Everybody just wants to impress the Joneses and do what everybody else is doing. And
Mm-hmm.
all of us other people, we're just kind of quiet because we know that we have the unpopular opinions that not a lot of people want to hear. And we know
Right.
that whenever we do speak up, there's not enough of us speaking up to where it's very easy for the people at the top, or the people who don't want this particular message to get out. It's very
Mm-hmm.
easy for them to step on it and squash it right then and there, and
Oh.
also paint someone to be crazy, or he's crazy like
Oh yes.
Kanye.
Oh,
I
believe
think
me, I know. Believe me, brother, I know. I mean, I had a, and I apologize if this isn't cool to like say a person's name, but I personally had a rapper by the name of Talib Kweli try to get my Twitter account deleted just because we were having a difference of opinion. Um, it is, and I say that to say it's amazing when what you're saying can just resonate so much that someone that on a normal day wouldn't even know you exist goes out of their way for that.
wait, so
Um,
tell me this story. How did this come about?
so I support this movement called ADOS, that supports reparations for Black American descendants of slavery.
Mm.
And he's had a little thing with them since 2019. Around that same time, I was on Twitter promoting them, and he, myself, and someone that was a supporter of this place called The Root got into it. And needless to say, somehow I got sent to Twitter jail for making threats, even though I never threatened a man. I'm not that stupid. Um, but it didn't really deter me. It just showed me, if you're gonna say that you're aware of what's going on around you and you want to speak on it, you have to know this is what comes with it. Um, I, I will say this: I have no ill will or bad bones against him. May he have whatever he's supposed to have. I wish no bad, but I will say you can't call yourself conscious and about the people and then attack your own on social media, because who are you doing it for? Like that. Hell, I was even accused of being, a Republican. And even if I was a Republican, whoop-de-doo, that would be my right. But
Yeah.
but I also don't believe in associating people with things that they're not just because you're trying to support a narrative. Like, I don't like when people try to refer to me as liberal neither. My name is Marcus. Just deal with me as Marcus. And if we disagree, we just disagree.
Right. So to be clear, you do support reparations for Black people.
Yes, sir. I believe that reparations should happen. I won't say they will, I won't say they won't, but I believe it's important. And it is also good for America too, because anything that helps Black people will help America, because Black-owned businesses are American businesses that can put a lot of stop into the outsourcing. it's a lot of good ways that it can affect the country as a whole. Because to quote the rapper Tupac, regardless of what you think of us, we are America's children. You can't turn us away no matter how hard you try.
Right. And man, that's very interesting that you say that, because this is an interesting conversation that I was having not too long ago, just in terms of the whole reparations thing. And I don't want to say I'm not a supporter of reparations. I'm just more of a realist, right?
Yeah, I totally
I
get
do
it.
not see any circumstance in which America will ever pay the Black Americans reparations. And being that I believe that to be a fact, I don't think that it's helpful or useful to anyone for us to continue to ask for something that we know good and damn well they are never going to give us. I think it's more important that we put our energy elsewhere, you know. And not only that, but slavery was a long time ago. A lot of the effects of slavery we are still dealing with today. Racism is still very much prevalent in society. And obviously, the system was set up for the Black man to fail. And not just for the Black man, but for the average American to fail.
While I don't
think.
Go ahead.
Well, hold on, let me finish.
All right.
I don't necessarily think we will ever get reparations. And I also think that we live in a time to where it's easier than ever for the Black man to be successful in this country. So I don't really like when people try to use slavery as an excuse for why we aren't successful as a race, because a lot of times what will happen is our people looked in the mirror and we will see kind of some of the things that we do to perpetuate this toxic cycle of lack and poverty. I feel like if we looked at ourselves and if we held ourselves accountable and if we put the work in, then there's no system, there's no white man, there's no government that can hold us down as a people, because we together, united, are stronger. But divided, we are extremely weak. So, what do you think about
I think you made some valid points, but if you don't mind, I'd like to do a quick run back through history just for a second. What you were talking about, like if we pull up, because we've done the pull ourselves up by bootstraps way before. That's where a lot of the riots came from. Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1919, the period of 1921, where other well-to-do Black communities were burned down. I get what you're saying. There are people that will say, because I'm Black, I'm failing when they never tried. But I think it's important to not gloss over the fact that our hard work has been met with destruction. And these were not, yes, slavery was a long time ago, but the attitude hasn't gone anywhere. A brother can go try to get a loan for a business now and get denied. I don't look at saying reparations need to happen as like, as standing with your hand out, is you're saying, listen, we're maturing to a point where we do realize we need to have agendas for ourselves, political agendas. Because think about it. Yeah. No other group that has a political agenda will be told that they're having their hands out or they need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Like, for example, no one would say that about the survivors of the Holocaust. And this really was a Holocaust for our people, so to speak. There is a middle ground where we need to continue to be as busy as the bees in the hive, but we also need to acknowledge, listen, every time we take a step, we can't just pretend like y'all aren't moving the goalpost and then turn around and say we're not working hard enough. Like, did you know that there was actually some stats out there to say that Black people have better saving habits than they're given credit for?
Better saving habits.
Yes, there's even false information to watch out for. Like in 2020, people really tried to make Black men the fault of Trump getting so many votes, but only 4% of black men. And I really don't care who you vote for, as long as you're speaking your mind at the poll by voting. But like, we sometimes can see the negative about ourselves so much that even us on the outside can miss out on where, racism and white supremacy does play a role. But constantly talking about it all the time isn't gonna, which I think is the point that you're making, is it going to negate what you can do? Like, for example, even though I may not get accepted for every job that I apply for, does that mean that I stop applying because I think I'm not getting hired because I'm black? No, you got to do it anyway. I think the problem is there's no clear direction because everyone has their philosophy, and we don't get to the point where we're at right now where we're able to say, okay, you're on this side of this thing, I'm over here. Where's the middle ground? Let's meet in the middle. A lot of people just shut down because they can't get to that common ground.
Yeah, and I think the issue is also because we're just not unified as a people. And in the areas in which we are unified, we're unified in the areas that bring destruction upon our people. But
Right.
those of the intellectuals of the black community, a lot of the times we're told that we're too white, or we want to be white, or oh, you speak too proper, or this, that. Like, we are always at war with ourselves. How can black people ever reach a point to where we are actually united if we want to continue to tear each other down and hold each other down just because we can't agree on the basics? Now, again, there's no secret that white America has always come to try to derail the black man's plan. There's no secret about that. There's no secret that the system has always been set up for the black man to fail. My thing is, we know that, and we've known that for a very long time. But today, what makes today's time, today's era, this generation so different from the previous generations is now we have the knowledge and the information in the palm of our hand.
Right.
The issue is so many of us do not seek that knowledge. So many of us have been told since childhood that, oh, because you're black, the system is stacked against you. What is that telling the young kids? That's telling them, like, well, there's no point of me even trying to be anything more because there's always going to be a white person that's going to step in and try to derail it. And I just don't think that's a necessarily healthy way to think about it. I think we should be really teaching education. That's the most important thing. Information and education can do wonders for the black community, but a lot of us reject the information. We eject the facts. We don't want to hear them if they don't support whatever narrative we want to set for our own lives.
Tell me something. When you were younger, like, did you like broccoli, carrots, and all that, those types of things? And there is a reason
I'm a
that I
little
asked that.
strange, so I love broccoli and carrots.
That's good. And the reason why, and that might seem random, but follow me. Sometimes talking about these things can be like trying to get a little kid to eat broccoli, carrots, or tomatoes, or those things that they don't want to eat in favor of the Twinkies and the chips and all that other stuff. Because what may feel good for you may not always be right at the time. I think we so used to being fed feel good stories.
Yes.
And here's what I will say: feel good stories or feel bad stories. Like, there used to be a balance. Like, yes, this is how the system is. It's not fair, but you be all you can be anyway. That has changed. And while I get what you're saying about today's era of information, you also have to realize today's era is a product of generations upon generations of defeated men and women. We are basically, you don't even have to be in a gang. You look at how we're separated. I mean, forget the gangs, the believers versus the non-believers, the Christians versus the Muslims, the straights versus all the letters. It's like, do you really think other groups of people are sitting up here saying, you know what? I'm not going to do what's in my best interest with you because of who you are. No, they're like, okay, you know what? Let's take care of business. And we got to get to that same point. Like, you take a brother like Shannon Sharp, who's doing amazing right now. And so far, all his detractors seem to look just like him. And it's like, and their attack on him is something that, even if it's true, it's none of their damn business. It's
Right.
like, why do I care who Shannon Sharp likes or who he's attracted to? I know who I'm attracted to. I'm not sitting up here being like, and I made this joke on Facebook before. I'm a black man in America. Of course, the black man's sexuality has something to do with me. I'm a black man in America. Of course, you know, what a black woman is wearing means more to me than whether or not my bills are paid. And then I made one for the women too. You know, you can't sit around here judging a man, judging him, calling him, zesty or sassy because he takes care of himself, he knows how to cook and all this other stuff. That used to be those type of men used to be the prize for y'all. Them Ray Rays and Pookies ain't it. And too many people who aren't even Ray Rays and Pookies who want to be Ray Rays and Pookies. Why? Because almost everything on television tells them that's the way to be. I
Yep.
mean, I'm not going to say Power sets a good example, but look at the person who made it, 50 Cent. He is a genius example of, you know what? I can clean it up. I can put the suit on. I can sit in here. Like, we talk about Jay-Z, but 50 Cent, to me, he's a great example because he shows you don't actually have to completely give up who you are to sit in these rooms and be like, listen, we're going to do it this way. We're going to do it my way. I'm putting my own money behind it, which is that's actually where I see you in the next 5 to 10 years. A mogul. I told our friend Kraft that the other day, actually. Um, I see my, you have to see it for yourself because I can see it for you all day long. You see it already. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this. I, Last time I talked to somebody else that was into music, he asked me, aside from music, because we do have a tendency to treat this music like it's who we are, not what we do. What do
Yep.
you see yourself doing? I said, I see myself living in Los Angeles, California, um, having, my own dispensary because I want to help people. I want to show people there's a way better than painkillers because I don't know if you knew this about me, but I used to be hooked on them.
Mm.
Um, and after my grandfather passed away, I developed a bad drinking problem. But once I started like using cannabis for medicinal reasons, I started to realize not only did it help with the pain, but my creative process felt less forced and it was not as much anger behind it. Like I was just like, okay, let me say this, let me say that. I felt in my zone the same way like a 5-year-old feels when he has the crayons and he's just allowed to go crazy and color outside the lines. I see myself, yeah, I said I see myself in Los Angeles, California with a wife and 4 kids, the American dream, 2 boys, 2 girls. Um, and I see myself living comfortably. My mother doesn't have to work unless she wants to, because I'll put her up in a house. I'll put her up in a house that I built brick by brick. That
Right.
and I think if you ask a lot of men, give or take the profession, they'll probably say something similar. I want to make sure I'm good and everyone around me is good. And I think black men are no different. Like, there's actually a statistic that says that the black men that are around were actually super present in their kids' lives, showed up to everything,
For sure.
were even more affectionate with their children.
And I do
Um,
think that that's something that white America has kind of latched onto to push this stereotype that black men don't raise their children, which is 100% false.
yes,
Um, Especially in today's time, there are more black men who are fathers, actual real fathers,
yes.
than possibly in the last 40 years, you
Uh,
know? So I do think that's very important to call that out. That is a misconception about black men, but there is an issue, and maybe it's a bigger issue, bigger than the black man himself,
uh-huh.
but more specifically in relationships, the relationships between the black man and the black woman.
Talk about
We
it,
are
man.
the only race of people
Uh-huh.
we're at war with each other.
Yes.
And in my humble opinion, I believe that there is a war only because the black women don't respect the black man like the white woman respects the white man, or the Asian woman respects the Asian man, or the Latino man, the Latino woman respects the Latino man. I think black people are the only race to where we have this gender war going on. What do you think about that?
I totally do see your perspective. And let me add this on because I told my mother this yesterday. Young girls, they're told to respect themselves only. Boys are told to respect women only. They're never told the importance of self-respect. And think about it. If you don't respect yourself, you can't respect anybody. Because like you can see it. Like we literally will get online and bully the hell out of each other. She's a hoe, she's for the streets, her what is loose and used. And on the flip side, he got small D energy, he broke, he's worthless. It's almost like less like adults and more like kids fighting on the playground to show who's king.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not a fan of that term toxic masculinity because it doesn't exist. I'll tell you what does exist. What exists is masculinity misunderstood, a misunderstanding of it. Like this whole you got to beat your chest like you're King Kong thing. You don't. And I think we don't actually give enough credit to the fact that Black women were never considered feminine, and the prospect and stereotype of being manly and masculine, the darker you are, has always been thrown on them. And while I agree with you with self accountability, but it is important to know if you treat people a certain way long enough, it's only a matter of time before they start acting like it. If you treat them in disrespect, they're going to be disrespectful. Um, I think the thing with the gender war, it all comes with someone has to be the cooler head and have patience. I've even looked in the mirror myself.
Well, we
Like,
know
and
we
that's,
know who that is. It's the men. The men are the ones who are cooler headed with patience because men, we're able to think with logic and women think on emotion.
I,
So
I
when
think
one person is sitting here saying, okay, let's be logical about things, sweetie, and then the other person is,
I do think there are men out
how
there
do we
like
work
that,
with
but
that?
I think we need to get more men out there like that because we also have too many men that will
Our
act
emotion.
that very same way that you're talking about.
Yes.
And that's dangerous because when our emotions get high, we're prone to like
People die.
freaking out. And the last thing, and it's like nothing, nothing hurts my heart more than when I hear that a woman lost her life because a man couldn't keep his cool. And it also bothers me when I see some of these women pushing certain buttons, like especially when a man is trying to walk away. And I'm just like, you don't understand what you're doing. Leave him alone, vice versa.
No,
I
they
get,
understand what they're doing. That's the thing. They understand what they're doing. The issue is that they've seen it done for generations on
mm-hmm,
generations now. And I can speak on this because I grew up in a household, and I'm going to speak about this a lot
right?
more in the coming weeks. But I grew
Okay.
up in a single mother household. I was the only boy. I had two other older sisters.
Mm.
My mother has a very bitter attitude towards men, right?
Oh, okay.
And how does a single mother who is bitter towards men, how does she teach a young boy how to be a man?
She can. She's only going to teach him how to be bitter himself.
Right, and how to hate himself. Because when you're
Right.
constantly being told that men aren't shit, and then you're growing up in a household to where you see violence, domestic
Right.
violence, you see your mother throwing a lamp at her boyfriend's head, busking, leaving them to have to get stitches. When you see this black woman throw water 300 degrees on this man's flesh, all because of emotion.
Right.
When you see black women acting in this way, what do you think? What do you think the behavior that my sisters picked
Like
up and how they act with their man? They just do exactly what they was shown. So I think that's the bigger issue, is that for generations and generations, women have been able to act out of control. So yeah, a man who has a cool head, yeah, a cooler head should prevail.
And
But
I
what do you do when a person is consistently antagonizing you?
Now, I'll say from my experience, and because I don't believe in faking the funk, I will say like my experiences, like with black women, for example, I didn't really have to deal with too many issues like that. And on the instances where there was disrespect, I usually didn't give, I only gave them one chance to come correct. And if they didn't, I just removed myself. Like, and that, I mean, I know that's considered, to be like a punk thing for a man to do, cut people off. But it seems like I'm better for it. And also, I can see how growing up in a household where your mother behaves that way, that's a little bit harder. Even at a certain age, most men don't think, "Oh, I'm going to cut ties with mother." Thankfully, I think in my position, because I had my grandparents in my life, my mother was not alone. She, over time, became she was able to be the lady with us that mothers are supposed to be, gentle, like,
Yeah.
showing me like she actually, because my father was absent, she was actually the one that gave us, me and my brother, the room to be who we really are. When it comes to emotions, she taught us, just go in the room and get yourself together so you don't say or do anything that you'll regret. Because she had two brothers and a father, so I think she already knows what it's like when a man's emotions get the best of him. um Having my grandfather there to say, don't be no bully, but don't take nobody's foolishness either, helped a lot. And this is an era, but this is also an era where there was, as you said, community, because I'm a child of the year 1993, so I get to say I'm older than the iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me feel a little old, but
Man.
here's what I say: I'm very selective of the women I deal with. When we have conversations, it's certain questions that I ask, almost like on an interview type tip. Like I'd be like, how do you feel about X, Y, and Z? If like, and depending on how they answer me, I put a note in my head, like a file cabinet, and I say, okay, I'm not going to test you because it's not my job. I give everyone the benefit of a doubt until they show me something different. I say, now I'm going to remember this. If I see something different, I'm not going to give you no time to explain. I'm just going to cut ties because you're not handling things how you said you handle things. And I feel like women need to have that same principle with a man. Like, okay, he's saying that right now. I need to remember that so that if he's not that one that's like, okay, let's talk about it, and instead he's like flipping tables or grabbing me by the neck, like, you bitch. Remember, okay, no, this is him. Like, because actions speak louder than words. Um, I do think, yes, certain women do act. A lot of women, I ain't even gonna say certain because that's being too generous. A lot of women act this way, but we can't give black men pity when they keep picking toxic women, going in them with no condoms and making babies with women that they know they're not gonna even want to bring home to their mother. That's where we also have to apply personal responsibility and say, you know what, pretty or not, this is not a woman that is even really a woman. She's a little girl in a big girl's body. Because and women, same goes for the black women. I don't want to hear black men ain't shit when your taste in black men ain't shit. If you're
Right.
only picking toxic people, what's wrong with you? There is no toxic masculinity. There's no toxic femininity. There's only toxicity.
Toxic. Yeah.
There's only bad behavior. Because the last thing we need is people. Because like the reality is, there are dudes that are more sensitive and artistic. There are girls that like to play sports and draw, and I don't want them thinking that something's wrong with them because that's who they are. I want them to know, as long as you are raised in respect and raised to respect, you'll be okay. Because I've seen dudes that consider themselves alpha males with tattoos. It's like, um, go up to their sons when they're having a bad day and like, let's go over here. Let's see how we can fix this. Like, we judge each other too much, my friend. We we hold each other to unrealistic standards, first and foremost. We can't expect everyone to have the answers. As we sit here, you and I don't even have the answers. But I do know one thing. Even if it doesn't get completely better, it can get a little better over time by time. And maybe by the time a few generations ahead, someone can say, you know what? We see the missing piece that they didn't, because there's always going to be a new piece of the puzzle. Um, and it also requires us to look at things that we might even enjoy and say, okay, I see the flaws in that. Like that Cat Williams interview with Shannon Sharpe, I got a good kick out of it. I was glad to learn some things about my favorite comedian, but I also had to realize he does not actually do a service when he's constantly taking a dump on every other black comedian like that.
Yeah.
Even if he's just responding to what people said about him, like look at the negative ripple effect it can have. Shannon Sharpe has the attention, but now he's getting it just secondhand from association. And then it just goes on and on and on. And it's going to take someone saying, you know what? Why are we really mad at each other? Like, once upon a time, there was so many black rappers on the charts, so many black comedians, so many black actors. Now it's like it's one at a time. Like who who was the who came around like we had ASAP Rocky, we also had Kendrick, we also had Drake, J. Cole. These men coexisted, and I think some of them are still good friends to this day. Now it's like, oh, he threw shade. And that's another thing I hate. Sometimes a person's not even throwing shade. Like it could be like someone say, so what did you think about that Jackie Jordan song? And I'd be like, well, I like Jackie Jordan, but I don't think it was his best song. That could easily turn into, oh, Marcus is dissing Jackie Jordan. Shots fired. And it's like, no. It's
But I
like,
think
go
what
ahead.
you're speaking to is the overall issue with one, not only social media, but also just in the black community itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's the crab in the bucket. Like this is when I say some of the remnants of slavery, right? And
Yeah.
the way the system is set up, the reason why we have this crab in the bucket mentality is because we're so used to scarcity. We're
Right.
not used to everybody being able to have a seat at the table. It's only one of us. So whenever we see somebody, one of us, get a seat at the table, what's the first thing people say? Oh, he must have sold his soul. He had to sell out. Oh, he must be
Right.
gay. He must be doing. We always want to pull each other down, and I think that's a bigger conversation because if you were to say that you didn't like a particular song of mine, I wouldn't take that as a diss because one, I enjoy constructive criticism, and then two, I know that you don't have any ill will towards me in your heart. You know, you just
Right.
have an opinion and you're entitled to your opinion, but the world and everyone else wants to make an issue where there's no issue. That's because we get pleasure out of seeing each other tear each other apart and tearing each other down. That's why the Cat Williams interview did so many numbers. It's at this current point in time right now, it
Mm-hmm.
is the second most watched interview ever, and it's on pace to become the most watched interview ever. Why
Right.
is that? Because people want to hear other people tear others down. They want to
Right.
see this fucking explosion happen. So everybody can
Absolutely.
just sit around and say, oh, ha ha, point fingers and just judge people, which is fucked up in my opinion. Now, if you watch the interview, Joe Rogan and Cat Williams, a
Uh-huh.
completely different experience. It's one of
Right.
my favorite interviews, but it doesn't have all of that toxic, negative shit into it. It's just two people having a conversation.
Right. And that's also why it's important to think about what you're saying before you say it, because it's important to note the difference with the club Shay is a lot of drinking happens, and when you're drunk, you're more what is the word, boisterous, and you
Yeah.
say things that you wouldn't normally say sober. And I'm not saying Cat wouldn't say it sober, because Cat Williams is Cat Williams. We know him and love him for talking his shit, but there is a time where it's like, come different, because we know you're more brilliant than that. We know you have way more to offer than that, knowledge wise. And I think that's where we are with black people, we have to just tell each other, when everything ain't got to be a diss to somebody else. Like, we smarter than this. We're smarter than they think we are. We're actually smarter than we think we are. We can sit here and plant some seeds for the next generation to pick the fruit from them years down the line if we really want to.
Right. So, moving on here, man, I want to talk a little bit about music. What was it that wanted you? I'm sorry, I can't fucking speak today.
Don't worry.
But what was it that inspired you to become a rapper?
So, believe it or not, Murphy Lee. The song, you remember the movie? Do you remember the 2003 movie Love Don't Cost a Thing with Nick Cannon and Christina Milian?
Yeah.
So the song, where he's like, "I'm gonna make you love me, babe." I was like, "Yo, say what you want." That jump was so mellow that it actually put me in a headspace. I'm like, I can do that too. I can get on a microphone and just talk about what I'm thinking about at the moment, even if it's just like wanting, a girl to like me back. Even if it's just me feeling like I'm the coolest dude in the gym or wherever. And then I started writing. I wrote my first rap when I was 14 years old. I went I went by a variation of names back then. I was M Dog. I was M Dog, which I got from Lizzie McGuire. There was an episode where the little brother Matt was calling himself M Dog. Then I figured if it ain't broke, why fix it? Just go with Marcus. Then I started to take the rapping more seriously. After I started listening to guys like Kanye West, Lupe, Lil Wayne, Pop, Biggie, Nas, Rakim. It was like each new artist offered me a new piece of the puzzle. Like, okay, I can do this. And then over time, I had to learn it's important to remember these are totally different people than me. That was the challenge because when you first met me, like, I think I was listening to Nas so much, listening to what was the other person I was listening? Wu-Tang so much that it was obvious that I was coming off like another copy. There's no time limit, and that's the lesson I had to learn. There's no time limit to when you find your own voice. I think I found my own sound very recently. You listened to my latest project, I think last week, chapter 28, hypographia, which is actually hypographia is the opposite of writer's block, excessive writing. Because after I finished grieving my grandfather, I began to write excessively. I even had a murder Monday challenge where every Monday for the month of March I would drop a freestyle. And when I look back on the 14-year-old that decided he wanted to rap, I say I actually did not even expect to have as much fun as I've had. I really didn't. But I will say you came at a time where I consider you, and I don't care if we live, I don't care if it's sappy, I consider you to be a blessing in disguise because I was actually about to give up the day before we had met because I had just had a falling out with someone whose crew that I was on. And I was like, man, maybe this just ain't in the cards. And then, like, I believe, as a matter of fact, I believe at first you were a mutual friend of a friend of mine's. And then we started talking. Yeah, Sean, shout out to Sean, by the way. And then the rest was history. Like, we just meshed well together. I would almost say UGMAF, we kind of had like that Kanye and Jay-Z type of rapport. Like we fed off of each other. I think if we were to go in a booth now, I think we would probably be on some finish each other's sentences shit.
Yeah, and that's very interesting because I brought that idea up to Kite a Feature, and I said, what would you think about a UGMAF reunion in 2024?
I think I think that would be perfect. Like that would be like full circle because this is literally 10 years from when we first crossed paths. I
Mm.
say let's I say let's make it happen and whatever we're doing, if you want to sing, if you want to rap, whatever you want to do, because I'm doing a little bit of everything myself too. I'm starting to really get into the singing bag. I would love the chance to show everyone that I used to work with. I have grown a lot from the rap snob that I used to be back in those days.
Yeah,
Um,
it's an interesting time now. Um,
yes,
it's like so much has happened, man. Like you said, 10 years, so much has changed. I think we've
yes.
all grown as artists. I think now where when in the booth we'll kind of come at things in a more mature perspective. I said it's kind of hard to recapture that same fire, that same hunger that you had or that I had at 16 years old. But it'll be very interesting to see what that looks like in 2024. I said I don't know exactly how possible it is. I know
Mhm,
that you're down for it. I know that Kai the feature is down for it. Um, Taz, I know he'd be down for it.
mhm.
But it's like I don't want to do it if I can't have everybody, like
I know,
everyone.
I know
There's still a
exactly what you
conversation that
mean.
needs to go ahead.
No, I said I know exactly what you mean because it's like there's still because it used to be big. There's a lot of people missing that it wouldn't feel right without because it's like some I haven't even heard from in those 10 years since we first encountered. Some like I actually still have them on my friends list for like nostalgic purposes, but like
Mhm.
we don't interact much. It's like I think if we were going to do it, we would all have to sit down and talk and see where everyone's heads are, who wants to do it, what's their motivation. Because, some of us have kids now. Um,
Yeah.
and it's like some of our priorities are different. And that's perfectly okay because we've not only grown as artists, we've grown as human beings too.
Do you have
Um,
any kids, man?
no, I don't have any kids. I've held myself to this rule. I'm gonna get married first. I don't
Oh,
I don't even care if I'm in my mid 30s. I want to get married first because I want any son I have to know like a wife is the coolest thing you can have. I want my daughter to know a husband is the coolest thing you can have
no,
because in my opinion, there's nothing more badass and I can't wait to pass this on to someone one day. There's nothing more badass than a man with love and conviction and passion and compassion.
for sure.
Like nothing can stop that man as long as his head is on right and he's doing what he's doing for the right reasons. Um, and I'm still growing because remember when you first met me, the idea of kids, love, all that, I used to be like, "Ugh." Like I was a very Squidward type of individual.
Well, I'm
And
definitely in my Squidward era now, so I can
you
understand.
I think it's a 20s thing if I'm being honest with you. Because it's
Yeah.
like that's that age where you start looking at the world and how much it sucks. Now at 30, I'm starting to see what things can be, and I've made the decision. Well, I can't control what it is for everybody. I'm just going to make it what it is for me. So it's like, once I did that, I think happiness comes with freeing myself from the negativity that I see around me, and that's why my music is so different. Like shout out to the artist Earl Sweatshirt. I think he reached that phase very early where he transitioned from what our future used to be to now him and Tyler both. You got Tyler rapping on a song about wanting a house, a wife and all this other stuff. Earl Sweatshirt, and I'm like, I don't have the big name, but I'm there too. I feel like we watched. That's why those artists of having artists that grow up with you in your age group is so important because you mature right along with them.
Yeah.
When I come back and I hear, even Eminem is not the same Eminem. Like he's at a place where it's like, I'm motivated by the good things. I think at this point, Slim Shady only comes out to appease the people that still like Slim Shady.
Yeah.
Like me, I still have hardcore bars because I know that's I'm a big battle rap nerd. So there's always going to be some type of gun reference. But I always keep it real. I'm not a killer till I'm in the mood to lay down a verse. Hint, hint.
Hmm.
But outside of that, man, I would love a reunion. I think it should extend beyond music. We should all just have like a group Zoom call. How's everybody doing? Oh, you got kids now? Introduce them to Uncle Jackie, Uncle Kraft, so on and so forth, man. Like, what have you been up to? I'm at that point now, like, man, if I ever do get married, you, Kraft, um, even young Picasso, y'all are definitely getting invited. Tickets covered and for flights covered and everything.
For sure, man. And I think it's impossible to talk about UGMAF the group if we don't discuss the breakup. I like to call this the Great Split.
Oh yeah.
What was your mindset when everything was going? When I want to talk about the first initial
Okay.
breakup, because there was maybe 2 or 3 breakups that happened. But what was
Yes.
how did you react to the first initial breakup?
The first
You
initial
remember that?
breakup, I think, was the first initial breakup the one where I left too and then came back.
Yeah.
So at the time, I felt conflicted. Remember how Kanye said he felt like he didn't know if he should stay with Dame or go with Jay? I kind of
Yeah.
felt that feeling. I felt like I felt I actually felt like I was betraying you at first. I knew you didn't
And
take it
when
that way.
you left the squad, you went to go join the white man team, man. I see how it is.
Don't do me like that, bro.
I see how it is, man. I thought we was
Oh,
Black Kings, brother.
oh,
What happened to Black King?
oh, that's cold, man. But at the time, I was going thinking, I was just gonna work with them, keep recording music. And then once you came back, I was gonna start I was gonna propose. I was actually planning to propose something to you because I came up with a name for a label and I wanted to, you know, collage them. And then I had the idea I was gonna try to get you guys to sit down and like let's make this where everyone has their own thing so no one feels like, because there was so much testosterone, I think egos got huge at times. But when I came back, I believe when I came back, everyone came back at first, right? And then
It
left
was just
again.
you at first.
It was just me at first.
Yeah.
Um, but I
They
will
didn't come
say,
back until they was dissatisfied over there.
right, when I came back, my reasons, because I don't even think I told you, my reasons was I legit just did not feel like a OTC one time classic individual. I didn't feel like I fit the mold of their vision. I felt like when I thought about it, I was more in line with Raw, because even if we didn't agree on my creative process, for the most part, you left it alone. You just said, okay, I don't get it, but do whatever it is you're going to do. This is your thing, not mine. And that's what made me come back. I realized you rarely come across people that are just going to be like, okay, this is your paintbrush, this is your canvas, get crazy. Even if it's complete bullshit. If it's complete bullshit, we'll work it out and see what needs to be done. Um,
Do you think I was a do you think I was an egomaniac at that time?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say egomaniac. You were 16 years old, you had a label. So it makes sense that your head's gonna be a little big. Let's just call a spade a spade. But
Yeah.
I do think that, and this is the thing about human beings, we all have our personality traits. I do think back then you had uh it has to go the way that I think it should go mindset, not just with music. I think that like that was your whole view. Like, I think this is right. And I never took malice from it because to you, you're trying to help. Like, I remember always thinking, like, especially during when I was working on writer's block, I think you were legit frustrated with how short some of my records were then. And at the
I was
time,
very frustrated.
and I think you knew I was frustrated that you just weren't seeing my vision. But even though,
And you were right too, by the way,
I
because
appreciate
at
that.
that time I was looking for songs that like 4 minutes, right? I
Right.
didn't quite foresee that music was that the attention spans of people were going shorter and shorter, but that music was going in a place to where the 2 minute, 3 minute song max, That was the
less is
new
more.
thing. So you were ahead in that area.
I know it was like a less is more thing. And but in the end, like brothers, we argued it out, but we worked it out. Because I think you were coming from the perspective of I'm pushing you because I know you can do better than this. I know you can give me more than this. And I think on my end, it was like I was like, you're not seeing what I'm seeing. This is going to be, and I think didn't I say that to you at one point? This is going to be the way it's done in just 2 or 3 years. I think I said that. And then we get there and it's like, wow, you know, people like Pusha T and Kanye are only dropping albums with 7 songs on them. It's insane because we grew up on double, triple albums. It is
Exactly.
like we it, that's one thing that I do look back on the raw days. We all had different levels of revolutionary thinking. Um, you look at a lot of the artists that in the mainstream that are a lot like you now. J. Cole has a label. Um, I believe Drake has had a label. I believe Meek Mill has a label. And and I know you gotta look back on it, look at it and think, dang, this is impressive. It's almost like you don't have to be mainstream to have like that feeling in your gut of where the curve is gonna turn.
For sure.
But
And
writers,
honestly,
go ahead.
man, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
I necessarily had. And the reason why I asked you if you thought I was an egomaniac is
Mm-hmm.
because you said, the egos clashed and everything. And I know certain people
Oh.
from the other side felt like I had a big ego. But the reason why I never really agreed with that point is because, first of all, we're talking about a label
Mm-hmm.
where, in air quotes, using the word sign. None of you
Mm-hmm.
were ever signed.
Yeah. What
I've
I meant.
never given anyone a contract. Wait, let me rock for a minute.
No, I hear you. I
I've,
hear you.
I've never given anyone a contract.
Mm-hmm.
You were signed in principle to say,
Right.
okay, we're going to distribute your music, right? Which we
Yeah.
weren't even monetizing at that point. So nobody was making no money off of anything.
Yeah. Handshake agreement.
Exactly. But not only
Mm-hmm.
that, but I was producing
Mm-hmm.
everyone's projects on my own,
Right.
producing for everyone and promoting everyone.
Yeah. Right.
I didn't have to produce your project. I
Absolutely
didn't
not.
have to produce Young Picasso's projects.
No, you didn't.
I didn't have to produce Mandy's project. I didn't have to do any of that. I was doing that because I believed in your talent and I wanted to help
Yeah.
everyone.
Kindness of your heart.
So I didn't really understand this angle of, oh, I'm just this person with this big ego who is just wants to be in charge and only wants to
Mm-hmm.
do things my way. My
Right.
thing was I knew
Mm-hmm.
where I was going and
Right.
I wanted to bring everyone up with me.
Right.
That was just coming from, the goodness in my heart and wanting to see other brothers, realize their dreams when at that time you were phone recording for the most part.
That is true. And there was no like Band Lab or none of these good apps that you have now. And I can only give you my perspective. I can't say how X feels or Y feels. When I say egos clash, because I want us to end this with understanding on that. I'm talking about male ego, period. Not you being an egomaniac. I'm talking about like us men, we all have that similar thing where it's like we know what we know, and sometimes what we know clashes with what the other person knows. Like our visions were very different. And I think it actually could have been something potent if we had just at the time found a way to connect them like you and I did. We found a way to make ours balance off of each other. That's what I'm saying.
But that can be the downfall of a lot of people. Like I have an ego. Everyone has an ego, right?
Absolutely.
But I've never been a slave to my ego. Some people,
Absolutely.
if you're not stroking their ego, they don't
Uh-huh.
want anything to do with it. They don't want to be around you, right?
Uh-huh.
I've never been that type of person because I know how to keep my ego in check. And to be honest, where I got my ego fed, that was seeing everyone else be successful. Because selfishly, I would be able to say, okay, I had a hand in it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's where my ego is fed. But my ego isn't fed by having, just people just worship the ground I'm walking on. And
Mm-hmm.
I say all that to say is that's the reason why I've never really just been open to the idea of joining another group, because I understand that everyone can do something. Everyone can help in some way, shape, or fashion, right?
Right. Yes.
4 hands are greater than 2.
Right.
6 hands are greater than 4, and so on and so forth.
Right.
The more people we can get to help us out, the
The
faster we
better.
can accomplish our dreams. But I realize that is
Mm-hmm.
very hard to do for the reason why you say the male ego.
Mm-hmm.
Too many egos
Right.
and people not willing to sacrifice themselves for the betterment of the group. That was never me. That was never you, because you
Right.
have done everything I have ever asked you to do.
Right.
You've
And I
never
like.
bitched and moaned and complained about it.
Right.
Like you said, maybe we may not have always seen eye eye to eye on certain things.
But we talked about it.
Exactly. And
And,
certain people you can't talk to, because certain people they only care about being right. They
right.
don't care about, you know,
Yeah.
what you're saying. They don't even want to take your perspective into consideration. They just want to be right. And it's kind of hard to do that, because when we talk about rap in general,
Mm-hmm.
rappers are very egotistical. It's what makes rappers rappers.
Right. Yes. It's funny you say that because I always say rap is like the musical pro wrestling. There's it's a narcissistic sport. We don't have to be narcissists to partake in it, but you have to play on that. But the thing that I'll always give you, if there was ever something that I didn't want to do, you had a way of showing me that it wasn't as serious as I thought it was. Like almost like just try it, bro. I'm trying to tell you, you won't regret it. Because you remember the song, remember when you was really trying to get me on the trap beats and I was real hesitant, like I really don't want to do that. And you was
Yeah,
just
it
like,
was Check.
right,
My
you was
Check
like,
freestyle.
you was like, just try it. If it really turns out as bad as you think, we'll just take your verse off of it. But you're not gonna tell me that you can't try. That was the way you said it to me. It was like
Exactly.
that's all I ever ask of y'all is to like give me some effort. If it don't work, we'll try something else, but at least give me some effort. And over time, I think that's how I got the nickname Second in Command, because it was like if this was WWE and you were Vince McMahon, then I was The Rock. Like whatever you needed done. Okay, if you need me on this person verse, I got it. If you need me here, I got it. I think sometimes I would have my verses in so fast that you was like, damn.
I just didn't like the fact that you would only rap half the verse, but then now I got maybe about 8 bars worth of empty beat that I either have to add something here myself, right? Or
Yeah,
I gotta find some type of audio clip or something just to make it,
right.
because
What
song structure,
what
for
I will
song
say,
structure purposes.
is that the album writer's block was not just a misnomer. I really did deal with writer's block like a bug around there, because I had only got into recording I had only been recording for 2 years at that point, 2013, 2014, 2015. So it was like out the gate, I was still writing one verse at a time. I started writing full songs around like 2020, 21, 22 on up. So it's like my evolution is very recent. And
Right.
and now I actually have a project where I'm going back to roots of doing short verses and short songs. And it's actually fitting to that because I'm learning how to take that weakness and turn it into a superpower. And it's aptly titled Lord is My Witness, the short version of a long story.
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about that. The new projects, the new music that you're working on.
So it's actually just to hold me off until my LPs are finished, because I have actually 2 in the pipeline, 3 more that I'm finishing up writing so that I can release them at different years. Um, Lord is My Witness that should be coming very soon. I got one called Martian and then one called Soul on Fire, which is a combination of 2 books. The Fire this time by a writer named James Baldwin, and Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver. both good books. Um, and then I have a collab that I'm gonna do with King Craft, aka Kai the Feature. We don't have a name for it yet, but we're laying out the beats. So, I'm working like a man possessed, but I
Mhm.
love it because it makes me feel like I have a purpose in addition to getting up and going to work every day. You know what I'm saying? It makes me feel like I've
Yeah.
earned the right to sleep in when I do sleep in.
So do
Um,
you ever just get burnt out, or are you running strictly on passion?
when I do get burnt out, I prefer to jump to one of my other hobbies, which is like going for walks or singing. The singing is actually something to like soothe me. It's like the rapping is an upper, the singing is a downer. And I've incorporated more singing as you've heard for yourself. Um,
I've been seeing
but
so many different artists doing that. I can't take credit for it, but um I've been seeing so many just artists do. I think um
effect,
that's the Drake legacy. Drake wasn't the
no,
first rapper to
uh-huh,
sing and rap, but
yeah,
he was the first rapper to make it cool.
that I can see. I would also, he definitely was because it's like, to me, he's like a safer version of Bone Thugs and Harmony because like they made it where it's like, oh, you can sing and still be a tough guy. But Drake, he came in to it and like made it to where, what if you don't want to be a tough guy? To me, Drake made it cool to say, you know what, it's cool to just be a guy. He doesn't get enough credit for that. He made it cool to just be a guy. And
Right,
sometimes that's what we all need. We need to just be a guy. We don't need to be a gimmick.
right.
So
I
it's in that department, Mr. Graham will get his flowers from me.
right because I mean, even just R&B in general, like
Uh-huh.
we see with the underwater beats and the breathy sing and all of this. I feel like all of that is Drake, his influence. And I feel like a lot of people aren't going to give him his credit until he's no longer making music. Um, but the impact is undeniable. Now, say what you want to say about him as a rapper, and lyrically, and some people
Hmm.
may say the Kendricks or J. Cole or Jay Z or anybody like that, but you can't deny the impact that he's made in terms of rappers also wanting to be singers.
I wholeheartedly agree. Drake Drake made it. Drake to me in this time made it okay to rap about being in love with a woman. Like you could say J. Cole does it, but I feel like and I debate this a lot. I feel like J. Cole still, even though he's a regular guy, him and Kendrick still have a bit of a tough guy edge to them. Not necessarily something they're doing, but you still get the sense of like, yo, these are Drake. He's like, guys, let's be tender. There's nothing wrong with being tender. And I may be laughing and joking, but there really isn't. Are we really going to be hardcore with our ladies behind closed doors? No. When you were the right woman, like I said on Writer's Block, you remember this metaphor? You soft as sheep fleece.
Yeah.
When when it's just y'all. That's the key word, when it's just y'all. But as it should be. To me, Drake, and this might sound like a stretch, but bear with me, brother. I feel like Drake actually ran with where Tupac was going with it because he started to think of, yeah, I'm hardcore, but I'm soft for the ladies.
Hmm.
And we really don't even know how to, a lot of us don't know how to do that. Like, don't know lady, and notice I'm using the word lady. Don't know lady or no woman want to hear no hardcore with self-respect, want to hear no hardcore shit out of dude's mouth.
I don't know. Them New York women a little different.
You know
Shout
what,
out to
brother?
shout out to New York. All love to New York, but them New York women a little different, man. They like,
You know what?
oh, you bad
The
aggressive. They like that shit.
Yeah, they sexy at times. I'll say that much. Every now and then, you need you a girl that you can play football with or wrestle with. But I'm talking about a certain type. you have to have access to that side because it's not just enough to have access to that side. You also have to know how to control it because that's one thing that I noticed the artist Drake struggles with. Like he doesn't know how to turn that sensitive side off, and it shows in how he reacts to any criticism. Like you ain't got to respond to everything. Sometimes you got to take the Jay-Z route and just ignore it. And when you do address it, you address it and address it in a way that you're letting the critics know, hey, I know you're saying this, but what's it going to change? I'm still going to do what I'm going to do. I think that to me, Drake is the musical equivalent of The Miz in the WWE. He's someone who, and yes, I know that's an interesting comparison, but the reason why I say The Miz is because The Miz is someone who actually deserves a lot of respect because he took himself from nothing to something. Um, why The Miz is not thrown in there with your Kofi Kingstons and your Bryan Danielsons is beyond me. Um, I feel like
Well,
Drake is this.
I'll say this because he has one of the worst win-loss records in the WWE. Like literally,
Who
look it
Miz?
up. Yes,
Who
he's
Miz?
lost way more matches than he's won. But in the
That
same breath, he's still been able to be very successful, Grand Slam champion,
twice. The only one to do it twice.
and very entertaining.
Yes.
But
And
if you want to say why he doesn't get the respect as some of the other people on that level is because of the
mhm,
win-loss record. Like people, especially the wrestling community, like
mhm.
first of all, are you a heel or are you a babyface? I think the Miz kind of got in the thing to kind of like similar to the Big Show, to where he's always changing. One minute he's a heel, the next minute he's a babyface. People don't really know what to believe, or where to jump behind you and support. And then I
That
also
is a
just think it's the booking as well. So to
yes.
hear that
Oh
Drake
yes.
comparison, that's a very interesting comparison.
But I'll tell you now I'm about to bring Drake into it to really explain why I say that. Because like what you just said about Miz, you could say Drake went through his own identity crisis in hip hop. When he came in, he was kind of like rapping like backpack a little bit.
Mhm.
I would never say Drake was ever a conscious artist that dropped conscious lyrics, and that's fine. Everyone doesn't have to be that. But he did try being lyrical miracle after the whole thing with Tiger Meek Mill. He started to show like, yo, I got bars too. But then he changed to something else. And I don't see anything wrong with recreate yourself. Chris Jericho and Cody Rhodes have done it in their profession all the time. I
Yeah.
think the problem is we're at a place now where it's like, will the real Drake please stand up? Because it's like,
Mm.
who is the real Drake of music? Like, if I was to sit down with Drake today, I would say, I like a lot of your music, but I have a question for you. Where are you? Where are you in all of this? Where you at? When I listen to One for the Dogs, when I listen to Scorpion, when I listen to If You Read This Is Too Late, um, So Far Gone, which one would you say is closer to your heart? And that's a question that we artists have to ask ourselves every day when it comes to our body of work. Where do where and which of these projects, because every artist has their favorite project. I'm sure you have your favorite project in your own. Like, yeah, I really put me in this. And for the most part, it's easy to tell which one is which. Like, if you was to ask me what my favorite Tupac album is, I say Me Against the World. Why Me Against the World? Because I felt like he really bled himself into that one. And for that reason, I feel like it's better than All Eyes on Me and Illuminati, even though those two had better sonic production. Um, but Kanye, I will actually tell you, I love Jesus and I love My Beautiful Dark Fantasy because I can feel him in there. I could feel
Yeah.
Jay Z and I could feel Jay Z in the blueprints. Those are his personal albums. Lil Wayne, The Carter.
I
Um,
think for Drake, his personal albums would be Take Care and
mhm.
um, Nothing Was the Same. I think those are the two most authentic
Yes.
displays of who Drake is. Um,
Fun. Yeah.
but I do
Fun.
kind of see what you mean when you say the identity crisis. But I
Mhm.
think part of that also is just because at his heart, he's an
Mhm.
artist. He doesn't want to
Yeah.
be considered a rapper. He doesn't want to be considered a singer. I think he kind of just
Right.
wants to create whatever it is that's in his heart. And I
Right.
can see how to a lot of different fans it can be confusing, but he's also trying to please so many different demographics all at once. So that
Yeah.
I can see that being a challenging position to be in.
He does what I would call a little something for every. His music, I would describe it as like a plate at a cookout, trying to get a little bit of everything in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the same way, and there's nothing wrong with it because you look at someone like Beyonce. Beyonce recreates herself again and again and again and again, and
That's how
we
you get
applaud her.
longevity in this shit.
And we applaud her for it because that's the reason different types of fans of different types of music are still going to be talking about her because even Michael Jackson, you can say Michael Jackson was a little bit of everything. He didn't rap, but you can hear that swagger of a rapper in there.
Shit,
Like,
he got some rap verses.
like for example, oh, okay. Like for example, whereas T.I. would be like, "Hey, boy, you know what it is. You knew when you heard Michael go, he was getting gangster on you."
Yeah.
But even though you doing an interview, let me ask you this: if you were to walk into walk into the studio right now, just
Mm-hmm.
based off of everything that you've discussed with people and me and your podcast, Craft and your podcast, what would you see yourself putting down? Like, how would that have inspired you to core something?
Um, Rephrase the question.
Yeah, yeah. Don't mind me. I'm little little medicated and it's kicking in now. um, what I mean is, what do you think you would record in the studio after having these meetings of the minds with people? Like, what do you think it would inspire you to create if you were to walk into the studio right now or tomorrow?
Lord only knows, man. I kind of my creative process is a little different now than it used to be. Um,
Um,
well, back in the day, I used to make a concerted effort to kind of
playing that
write
dance.
something. I would sit down and say, okay, I'm finna make this song, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm finna rap this way, or I'm finna. But now when I come into the studio, first of all, you know, I don't really go into it with any expectations. I tend to allow it
Got you.
to come to me. So if I'm understanding what you're saying properly, after
Mm-hmm.
having this kind of, you know, intellectual conversation, if I
Yes.
was to go into the studio, I would think in my subconscious something that we spoke about would inspire me to create something along those lines, you know?
Uh,
Uh,
yeah, that's what I was sort of getting at. Because, but I actually relate to your answer. It's like I think as you get older, it's out of your control. Your creative process does change. Because I used to plan in advance. There was a time where you could send me beats, and I just be like, "Well, I write this, I write this, I write this." Now it actually has nothing to do with the beats anymore. I've gone from like making my sound fit the beats to trying to like bully the beats into fitting into my sound.
mm-hmm,
Um, and I could listen to anything and something could happen. Like last week, I was riding on the way to work. That Ice Spice song was on the radio. In my head, I completely removed everything that she and Nikki was saying, and I was just like on the beat in my head, like XYZ, XYZ. And now because I have so many things I want to do and so much going on up here, I have no
mm-hmm.
choice. I better write it down or I will completely forget about it. And some of our hardest lyrics are the ones that we didn't write down or don't remember the next day. Um,
Yeah.
I find myself listening to less rap and more old school neo soul. Like I have wrote a lot while listening to Erica Badu.
Same here, brother. Same here.
And I feel
See,
like Erica Badu is an MC that doesn't even know she's an MC.
oh, for sure. Better than a lot of, I'm not gonna say no names. This ain't, I don't want to say no names, but Erica Badu can really stand against any female rapper. that you want to throw at her.
Male too.
And that's just how I
Male too.
feel. Male too.
Yes, male too.
A lot of these niggas up. Lauren Hill
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. And that has always been a dream collab of mine. So I was like, if I was to like, um, because you know how people do fantasy wrestling, fantasy football. I do fantasy music. Like I'm like, we need some Erica Badu featuring
Yes,
Jill
sir.
Scott featuring Lauren Hill, but we need to set the time back to 1997 when Badu first came out because Baduism to me is like gold, lightning in a bottle. And somehow this woman just kept getting better and better and better. To me, she is the female equivalent. And I'm trying to pick the best artist I could think of. I'm actually gonna say like the only other person that I get that feeling from is when I would listen to Prince's music. Like I feel like
Mm.
Prince music was like wine. It doesn't get old, it just ages gracefully.
Yeah.
Rest in peace to Prince and Michael. You know,
Rest in peace,
that was
all the legends, man.
yes. And Tupac too, because I done brought him up at least 4 times.
And Biggie, a few
And
days
Biggie,
ago, anniversary of his death. R.I.P.
and
to Biggie.
yes, R.I.P. to Biggie, because I always said, like, if Biggie was still around, he would be another name in that mogul list
Oh yeah.
because he was already. Let's think about it. Even though Lil Kim and them were signed to Bad Boy, they were really Biggie's artists. Like
Mm-hmm.
the writings on the wall, but and that was that era.
Biggie
That's
wrote
the
for
era we.
everybody a bad boy, Puff
Oh
included.
yes, that was the. I believe that. Matter of fact, no, I don't believe it. I know that because they've
Mm-hmm.
even said it. Um,
Yeah.
that's the era we came from, man, where black men and women were taught, even in hip hop, you can be whatever you want to be. Aaliyah and MC Light, Queen Latifah, I always dug the tomboy thing they had going on because it showed, oh, Miss Elliott, you're not gonna look at me as a sex object. You're gonna respect me for my ability to articulate myself through my craft. Missy
Yeah.
Elliott, that's Missy Elliott is actually a big influencer on me as well as Kid Cudi. Um,
Wow.
like me and Kraft, we had this running joke where it's like, um, when he asked me for a verse, like I wonder whose influence I'm going to hear today. And then sometimes I can be so like overloaded with different influences where it's like it cancels each other's out and it cancels each other out. And it's just like, yeah, that's just Marcus right there. And that's the challenge for myself to get that way all the time to where someone can't really even hear what I listen to. I want them to only hear me.
Yeah, and that's my advice to all aspiring artists is if you ever want
Mhm.
to find your own sound, all you have to do is just expand your musical vocabulary. Go and listen
Right.
to genres outside of the normal genres that you listen to. Go and listen to artists outside of the normal artists who you would listen to. Because you can take something from each and
Hmm.
every one of those artists. And when I say take, I mean borrow. You can borrow
Yes.
everything from all of these different places. Once you get
Hmm.
them together, you put them into a pot, and all you got to do is sprinkle your own little flavor, your own personality, your own sauce on it. Mix it all up, and then boom, you got something that's so different, so original, to where you can't be compared to any one artist. And I think you have done a very good job of doing that as you evolve your sound. I think K the feature has did a very good job at that as he evolved his sound. And if I can, so I think I've done a great job of doing that, albeit the best is still to come. Um,
Absolutely.
but man, I want to thank you for coming on this podcast, man. This has been a great conversation. I know this is a short podcast. I don't even know how long it's been. I know we've went overtime, but it's all right because it's great conversation. A lot of great things we got to discuss,
Yeah.
in
Thank you
this
for having me.
episode. And I'm very happy to have you on, man. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, man.
Go ahead, take this moment to again promote anything that you want the people to look out for. Let us
Uh,
know where they can follow you, where they can keep in touch with you at.
all right. Well, I'm primarily on my Facebook, which is the same as my name, Marcus Levee. My YouTube is Marcus 3714 Fly FLI, where I post a lot of my music at. I will be posting links to my reverb on there. Thank y'all for listening to me. Have a nice day and listen to Lenny Kravitz.
For sure. And yo, bro, I hope I got a spot on that project you working on. You got 3 projects you working on. I can at least get on one song, don't you think?
Hey man. Oh man, anytime you want on, just holla at me. You know, your vision is always appreciated. Like I got plenty of things that I can use your help on.
For sure, man. You know where to contact me. I'm always here, man. Anything for the great Marcus Levee, man. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of A Short Podcast with Jackie Jordan. Another thank you to our guest, Marcus Levee, coming on, sharing some of that great knowledge and intellect. I told you this was a very smart brother. And now you got a chance to see for yourself. Hope to have him on again in the future. The next 2 or 3 podcasts maybe are going to be must-watch episodes. So if you're listening to this episode right now, hopefully you've been able to make it all the way through. But if not, I'm going to click this up to let you know that the next 2 podcasts are must-watch. We're going to be talking about the Jackie Jordan life story. And you aren't going to want to miss it. But now, take this opportunity to like this video, click the subscribe button on our channel, click the little bell next to it so you get a notification every time I drop a video. And now, please go in the comment section, let me know what you think. But until next time, again, this is a short podcast with Jackie Jordan. I am Jackie Jordan. And until we meet again, peace out, everyone.